Welcome back to the Dopesick Show you won't get sick of. I'm Spencer. This is Sasha. I spent most of my 20s in federal prison, but I've been off heroin since April 9, 2010. Got a lot of stories about the dumb stuff I did to get put in prison. I've also got a whole lot of stories about the crazy stuff that happened when I was actually in prison. And God forbid you end up in prison. I want to make some of the same mistakes I made. So Petersburg medium. I self-surrendered to the low. Got in trouble, got sent to the medium. It's a different type of place. There's no prison like it. All the stuff that I had to hear and deal with and see on a daily basis, I thought, how did I get this unlucky? That I'm from Roanoke, Virginia. I get sent to Petersburg, Virginia. Most of the time in the federal system, you end up in a state next to you. Most of the Roanoke guys go to West Virginia. So I thought I was lucky, at first till I figured out what type of prison I was in. They don't do protection PCs, so half the people are local and 40% of the population are chomos. Yeah, worst of the worst. And there's an odd dynamic because being as there are so many people that are deviants, it makes the locals and the other people approach them, doing stuff behind the scenes. There's more stuff going on, I'm telling you what. Okay? Now, if you live certainly, no judgment or anything like that, but if you do live that life, I bet you one thing. I bet you got the morals that if somebody messed kids, you wouldn't be messing with them. So, okay, that's something you got to think about. These people are messed up, so-called gangsters, sneaking around with people that were, did unspeakable stuff, okay? There was a number of things with this dynamic. There are a couple places, and I know somebody always gets mad, but this is the truth. There are a couple places in the United States that there is a higher population that are predators than other populations, okay? Doesn't mean everybody from there is like that. Some of my best friends were some of these places, but they weren't with none of that. So that needs to be said before I say this. Now, you talk about gangs in prison. A lot of the gangs that I call gangs, they tell you we're not a gang. They are. Okay, in the prison, they are a gang, okay? They run no different than any other gang in there, but they would deny to the end, we're not a gang, we're this, we're that, like Pisces. They call themselves countrymen. It's what it stands for, whatever. They say, we're not a gang, we're countrymen looking out for each other. That's the most vicious gang on that compound. Do something to them, they tell you got to go, and you don't go, yeah, they're going to put 5-on-1 on you. That happened a number of times. The worst beating I ever saw was 30-on-1. I've never seen anything that vicious before or since. I saw somebody's head go to the size of a basketball in under 60 seconds. I saw just about all of his teeth get knocked out. Most of his ribs cracked. It was vicious. So this particular group that's a gang in there had a culture of messing around with, chomos behind the scenes. That was something that happened, okay? There were the known people, and now, just like I've talked about the low, you had Flamin' Raymond. At the medium, you had guys like Willie Moe and other guys like that were known, okay? And they'd see certain people, and it was like you could see this look. Like, like you hear that Fleece Johnson. I know that sounds silly, that I like you, I want you, I got to have you. But they literally, some of these people get like instant infatuation with people. Some of these people, I don't want nothing to do with them. Well, there was, this is terrible. Now, if it happens to chomos, let the cars fall where they may. And typically that was who it happened to. But there were a couple times it happened to people that weren't chomos. And that's messed up. And I got, something to say about that. Talking about prison and violence and everything else. Other prisons, you're going to have violence. You're going to have certain stuff, a little bit of this type of stuff. But at Petersburg Medium, there was a tremendous, the chance of getting got by somebody, if you wasn't going to stand up for yourself or fight or whatever, or something, you just had some weirdo with an infatuation with you, was higher, I would say, than any other prison. It was like the perfect storm of stuff. The perfect storm of people from a certain area that had certain interests, and then all these deviants that got sent there for their chomo program they had. But anyhow, so there was a person who ended up at this medium, and it was called D South. D South. Okay, it goes all the way up to F, like the names of the buildings, A, B, C, D, E, F. And there's North and South. Now, D South is funny. They called it Dirty South, but it actually was a dirty old unit. They almost always got last in the eating rotation, which was based on a 2-week inspection. They go room to room, TV rooms, and give you a score based on cleanliness of your unit. They were almost always last, okay? Now, that Willie Moe fella I talked to, that he tried talking to me when I was in Pill Line. I got a story about that I did before. God, and he talks like this. It could be good to have a friend. You got to let that be known real quick, and everything else. Now, part of the whole situation with people getting got is part by bad luck. And I'm going to tell you why. A big part of that has to do with what unit you get put in. And if there's a predator in that unit. Because if there's a predator in that unit, they have access to you easier. You can't just go in other buildings. You get caught in another unit, you're going to get in trouble. Possibly sent to the hole, depending on who's working. So, ending up in a unit as one of these guys could be an issue. Now, also in D South, there was also a number of guys that were from this gang, not gang, whatever you want to call it, this gang, that were in there. And this particular person, and it's happened. There's not a race, there's not a group that I can tell you that they did not have somebody that did not get got. The worst that I ever saw was they called him Can't Get Right Marcos. He was the nicest little Mexican fella ever. His crime was he got sent across the border. I'm sure his family sent him across the border so then he could make money working at a restaurant and send some back to them, because that's typically what happens. A lot of the legal immigrants come over here. They send most of the money back to their family because it's half of what they make can literally feed their entire family. So he got sent back, and it was like his 4th, 5th time crossing illegally. He got caught. He got 5 years for that. Unspeakable stuff was happening to him. And the guy who was doing it got worse than anybody I've ever seen. That was 30 on 1. That was terrible. But anyway, small white guys, as typically, just calling it what it is, as just typically who it's going to be that gets targeted. And a lot of these older predators, that's who they're interested in for whatever reason. There's a number of things. A lot of the time, these predators, it goes beyond, some stuff. It's like, even though these predators aren't in there for some chomo stuff, most of them ain't anyway, they're in there for some heavy dealing stuff a lot of the time. They got some chomo tendencies because the people who they like, who that they see this, have like a young look to them. Like when I was in there in my early 20s, clean shaved face, I looked like I was in high school. That's probably why Willie Moe approached me. You know what I mean? I shut that down real quick. Let him know, nah. I got this sweatshirt on, so you can't see my tattoos. You can't see I got a little mustache. I'm, you got to shut that down real quick. Timid people who seem like they are scared to be there. There is so much of a balance, but there also have been people that tried the too tough stuff when it was obvious they weren't tough. The people who do that, I'll fight anybody, and they don't weigh nothing but 120 pounds and just run their mouth. They're the corny, lame dude, and with that first smack, oh, what I do, that type of thing. So it's a weird balance of in between, of being tough but not too tough, because it's like it's the oddest thing I could ever explain. Like there's somewhere in between, and if you go too much either way, oh man, it sets you up to be a target. So this guy gets there, and of course, Willie Moe approaches him. You hear these stories from the people in there. I worked out with this guy who was in D South, Sweeney. Now, Sweeney is a big old dude. He'd done steroids. He's from West Virginia. He's got some wild stories, too. He got some crazy West Virginia stories, I'll tell you that. But we lifted dirt. We didn't have weights at the medium, so we had bags sewn up of dirt that we'd lift. And we'd lift every morning, like just first thing in the morning. Like as soon as breakfast is over, everybody's out there lifting to usually about 10 a.m. And he'd tell me these stories of stuff that was going on. Smoke was in that unit too. He'd been in prison like I think 42 years at that point. And they both telling me. So when you got two people telling you the same story, both of them like, yeah, that's what's going on. Something's happening. So basically they're like, Yeah, Willie Mo's got his eyes on a new one. He ain't having it. So it sounded like this guy was in there. It sounded like he was a chomo. Okay. There are a lot of stories of this, and I will tell the ones of the people who weren't, because that happens too, and it's taken me a long time to really look at it objectively, in terms of, telling people like warnings about what could happen, because the people that did get got that weren't chomos, I looked at them as like, I know this is wrong, but like, you get this mindset and you look at them as like weak or something wrong with them, something like that, but the fact is, it did happen to those people, so it is possible it could happen to, other people. And it's something, you get this mindset, well, it happened to him because that wouldn't happen to me, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. But, some of this stuff did happen, and I would say at this medium, it happened, people getting got happened more than any other prison there was, because there was just a weird culture that it created. So anyway, they kept saying that Willie Mo kept approaching everywhere he's at. He tried to give him some stuff when he first got there, and the guy was like, I don't need anything from you. And, just kept saying, leave me alone. Just turn to every event. But he was obsessed. He is at the microwave. Willie Mo go approach, try to talk to him while his food was cooking. And he just sit there and just, basically try to ignore him. If he's sitting down at the TV, he'd come sit down beside him. It was like, but this little fella was not having it. And basically, from what, Sweeney and the other dude, Smoke, was telling me, this group of people that's from an area that's got a culture of this, okay, there's certain stuff I can say, and I keep it pretty clean on here, so I don't want to take it too far, but basically, this gang, some of the older guys in the gang would punish the younger guys in the gang differently than a typical gang would punish. Much differently. Okay, and I heard one of them say some stuff, and so it's that much of a deal. Okay, just trust me on this. It's some messed up stuff. So he basically goes to them, and to this group of people, and he pays them, and they go in there the first day, and everybody heard he got smacked up a little bit. Willie Mo keeps on trying to go up and talk to him, and he gets a little mad with him. Leave me alone. It was a little bit of a public spectacle. So there ends up being a few days before they end up doing it again, but the same people go in there, and this time it's a little bit worse. They whoop up on him a little bit, but you got to be careful on the marks, because if you leave marks, if people tell, they run back to cameras, everything else, but then if he tells, then he's marked for that, so it keeps on happening to him. It happened a number of times, basically. And basically, they let him know, you're going to do what we're telling you to do. This is what it's going to be. You're going to do this. You're going to get this paper we already got filled out for you. We need your signature on it. We already got Willie's signature. And you're going to move in the cell with him. He didn't want to do it. Whooped up on him. And they got him to sign that paper. In order to move in somebody's cell, at the medium security, at the low security, it's weird because the staff at the medium security, even though the staff just talk to you any type of way, at the medium security, you'd get a little bit more respect from the staff too. The higher security, the higher the respect. The lower security, the lower the respect. The low security, you just feel that, they call it a cop-out form. That confused me for the longest time. I'm really like, I'm autistic, I'm like literal, okay? So it's an inmate request form, but they call it a cop-out form. So I'm looking for something like cop-out form. I think, what is a cop-out form? So it took me a while to figure out what a cop-out form was, but it's an inmate request form is what it is. At the medium, in order to move in somebody's cell, you have to have your signature, all the information of where you're at, where you're wanting to move, and you have to have the signature of everybody in that room saying, yeah, that's what's up. They can move in here. So basically, he paid them. He paid this group of people to break this guy down, get him to sign the paper, move him to the cell with him. Okay? And they did. And he moved in the cell with him. Yeah. Now, when you're locked down with somebody in a cell, you get locked down at 9 o'clock. They don't pop the door till something like, I think it was like 5:30 in the morning. I don't know. I slept a little later than that. But they popped it in the morning. And that's a long time. There's certain guards that take smoke breaks that go outside the unit and stay out there for an hour at a time. One of the worst things I ever was forced to listen to was when a guard was taking a smoke break that was way too long, and everybody had to listen to it. It was horrific having to hear it. But this guy ends up in the cell with old Willie Moe, and it ended up, he basically just got broke. He just got broke. He just ended up saying, well, I guess this is what life is now. Nah. I mean, that's where I'm doing it again. I'm saying, nah, I ain't going to do that. But, for me, it's like, death before that. I thought it was going to happen to me with this David Hasselhoff looking dude missing a front tooth. I got a bunch of chili seasoning packs, smacked it in his eyes. Okay, it wasn't going to happen. And it turned out it was just a joke. I was the only one not in on the joke. Even the guards were in on the joke. They were laughing about it. And when I did that to him and I was flailing and kicking and punching him, this was in jail. Before I knew anything about fighting, before I done any training. The guards came in laughing so hard they were stumbling over their own feet. But anyway, he basically became Willie Moe's boy. During the time he was there. Willie Moe be sitting there watching TV, and he'd, snap his fingers or holler at him or whatever. From what they told me, this was not in my unit. And he'd come over, and Willie Moe would tell him something. Next thing you know, guy would go make him a cup of coffee at the microwave, instant coffee. They got a 180 water heater. A lot of people some people put cold water, cold as can be, and they think that cold water heats up quicker. There is a weird phenomenon where that is possible sometimes, but it's not a definite across the board. So you'd have some people put cold water, cold as could be, with instant coffee in it, and microwave it, and it'd take 3 times longer, which got annoying. But anyhow, that's beside the point. There goes my ADD. He'd be bringing them coffee, be bringing them food and stuff, and they'd be making their little meals together. It became a thing. And yeah, they basically, Willie Moe paid them to go break him and tell him this. His events, his approach to everything else. And, there were times that he just did stuff on his own. But this was one of those cases where it wasn't like, he liked this guy's, he had eyes on this person so much. It wasn't a matter of him just going and getting this guy and that being the end of it. It was a matter of he wanted this guy to live with him. He wanted this guy to be in his room every day. It was that type of infatuation. And that you can see it. It's like this weird thing where they're just like this. And everybody in there would tell me this stuff about Willie Moe. When some of the new people walk in sometimes, big old man, okay? Like if you're about Bubba's going to get your butt in jail, okay? Bubba will be Willie Moe, okay? Like what you imagine from the stories, big man. He said he'd be sitting there, he talked raspy, he had a lot of weight on him. And that's a crazy thing. If you had a little bit of cardio, knew a little bit about fighting, this guy had about 5 punches in him before he started having an asthma attack, okay? Just because people are big don't mean they're scary. Somebody, Willie Moe, you could hear he had breathing problems. It sounded like it was a cardio workout just for him, just to talk to somebody. To talk like this. But they say if new people walk in, they'd see new people walk in, and he'd see one of them, he'd just be sitting there, and he'd just stare at them all, and he'd go, And, I mean, this when the people who are there, my friends that I get to come out here and talk about it, they'll tell you. I mean, it was that bizarre. And not only that, it went both ways. I've spoke on this before, but when I was at the low, there were so many people that come from mediums, and they hated the low, which I couldn't understand. Now, the low didn't have AC, but you never got locked down. You could be making fried rice in the microwave at 3 a.m. You just had to stand in your room for count for 20 minutes. So, they'd say, yeah, I want to go back to the medium. Ain't no respect here. And I'd be like, no, you don't. You don't want to go to this medium. It's not like a regular medium. Trust me. And there was one guy, he's a young black fella. I believe he's a GD, gang member. And he's like, nah, they wouldn't do that to me. And then, okay, there's another giant guy in there who was sitting there hearing me tell him this. The guy who was hearing me tell him this was about 6'6", more than 350 pounds. And he said, nah, brother, listen. What he's telling you is true. He said, He said, listen to the white guy right here. He's telling you some good stuff. He said, you think people ain't going to approach you? He said, they approached me. Yeah. And this guy had face tattoos. Giant black dude, face tattoo. He was dark, but he face tattoos, all up and down. 6'6", over 350. His young GD dude was like probably about 200 pounds. He had some muscle to him, about 5'10". You know, and he thought he was something else. But this guy who makes him look like a little dwarf was letting him know, nah, brother, they're going to approach you. Think you're too bad, they ain't going to approach. They approached me. And look at me. They're going to approach me. They're definitely going to approach you. He's like, it's really like that? And I'm like, yes. Don't do it to yourself, man. So I spent 2 years there. I hated my life. I said, trust me, you don't want to have to do that. So, unfortunately, I had to see and deal with this type of stuff and hear these stories. These stories were like, they get told, passed around, everybody passes around. It's like Mean Girls for men, except the men, except for, instead of, Lindsay Lohan looking people, you got big old gangsters with face tattoos that might stab you in the face. But it's the most gossip-infested place. You hear every story about everything that's going on anytime. And there are so many stories about stuff like this that happen. And most of the time, it's two chomos. And I mean, what are you going to do? That couldn't happen to a nice person or nice people, nice group, whatever. But sometimes it wasn't. And that's the thing to think about, This is the place that a lot of these people, that a lot of these chomos and a lot of other people, now, that were about 5 or 10% gang dropouts. Now, they'd tell you they just like to spread our gang across the prison system because we have too much power. No. They didn't send you out to Petersburg from California or Texas, you know what I mean? Unless something happened. Now, it wasn't always bad. Sometimes it was just gang politics, like somebody not paying enough taxes or just internal stuff. It wasn't like check-in or anything bad or anything like that. It was like they got jumped, so they sent them out there. But, it's a place where a lot of these people get sent. Half the people are locals, though, where it's not a PC yard. And where there is probably the heaviest population of this one group of people that I'm speaking of, that was the gang that would break people, because this prison was close to where they're from. They made up a giant population there. They were not there for protection purposes. They were there because it was close to home. A lot of them had certain inclinations. And then you put all these other people that are put there for that, and it creates this odd, perfect storm of a couple hundred predators that are there just because it's local, and then all these people, many of which are deviants, but many of which get put there because of the program they have for them, and because of that, some wild stuff happened every day. I mean, seriously, I hated it. Oh, God, I hated this place. Down in the drug program, that's the best, though, because down there, and believe it or not, there were a couple chomos in there. They give some chomos a year off for the drug program, which I'll never understand that. That really upset me, because there were certain people, and, certain people get caught with the weapon. They can't get the year off for the drug program, but this chomo can. I'll tell you what's really messed up about that. If it's federal and you're federally charged, everybody who is charged federally in the federal system should be able to get the same benefits, like taking this program and getting the year off. The only people that could get the year off for the drug program that had a weapon in their case were from the 9th District, which is like California, I believe. I think that's what it was. But there's only one district that gives people the year off if they have a weapon in their case. The rest of the people don't have that luck to them. So, I mean, that doesn't even make sense. But anyway, if you like the video, press the like button. If not, that's 24 minutes and 9 seconds of your life, which you'll never get back. I hope you did, though.